start unpacking what you mean by, the magnetic effect of how we use that to attract the customers.
Yeah. So most business owners, when they start off in this space, right, we're experts at what we do. And we are trying to figure out, okay, how do we package up our expertise into an online course or into a membership or into something that's sellable pretty quickly? We realize that, oh my gosh, I have to figure out how to sell this thing.
Hmm.
And what they do is they start figuring out, okay, how do I learn the marketing jargon? How do I learn the marketing scripts so that I can effectively sell the thing that I do? And what I like to talk about with people is at the end of the day, the words matter. Yes, you have to
Hmm.
have, there's certain marketing structures and stuff you have to use, but the people who you want to buy your program, i.e., the ones that'll be most successful with your teaching style, with your expertise, with the way you talk about things, they're going to be drawn to something I call the magnetic effect, which is
Hmm.
something that's only unique to you. It's the way in which you speak, it's the stories you tell, it's the random tangents you go off on, it's your obsession with target, it's your quirkiness of your voice, it's all of the characteristics about your voice, it's your nonverbals, it's your personality, but it all comes out in the way that you communicate. And I think most people who come from corporate backgrounds they've stripped away all of that personality because they've
Mm.
been taught to communicate professionally and succinctly and clearly and polished, and whatever word comes to mind for you. It's like we have this sterile communication style, and now we're trying to figure out how to sell our expertise, and it just isn't clicking. So the magnetic effect is really embracing how you communicate with your personality through your words, how you say those words, the stories you use, and your body language. When you do that, you show up on stage in a magnetic way. Your ideal customer practically begs to work with you. They say, how can I give you money? Because it's so
Hmm.
clear that you're the person they want to work with.
Yeah, it's pretty much like embracing, all the quirkiness and just embracing you and who you are and everything around you. I mean, that's really what it's about.
Yeah, and it doesn't mean like we could say that and be like, doesn't mean you have to be all like weird on camera. It doesn't mean you have to be bringing all this weird, but it's more of the how do you how do you show up the same way as yourself consistently? I like to
Hmm.
think about this as a dial. I had a client fly into Portland a couple of months ago. Yeah, he's an executive in his firm, and he's from a background in consulting, which was super freaking professional. And
Mm.
we talked about how consider how you communicate as a dial, like a twisty dial, like a volume on a radio. In
Hmm.
older cars that have the volume dials, not the newer ones with the buttons. But imagine the dial is your communication style, your personality. And what I want you to think about is if we totally jack the dial to the left hand side, that dial can be our most boring, sterile, professional language. Like if somebody were to hear you talk or read your words, they had no idea. Like it could have been written by you, it could have been written by a million other people. Like it's just very, very dialed back. But if we crank the dial to the right, it is so uniquely you. It's like no question that this came out of your mouth. And the analogy that I used with this client was imagine you're like how you get ready in the morning with your wardrobe. Imagine all the way to the left is your like most formal professional thing that you
Mm.
wear, like you're getting dressed to go to the ball, like a fancy event. But if you crank it to the full right, it's like you at your truest on a Sunday morning in your sweatpants, in your cozies, ladies, big messy bun on your hair, no
Hmm.
bra, like you wouldn't really show that like truest real version to you outside of your family. What I like to say, you have to figure out that sweet spot in the dial
Hmm.
where every version of you is the version of you, but you have to figure out what is the one that's going to be the ah, I like that person. I really jive with them. And chances are it's far less on that formal side, which is what we think we need to do in business to show up as a quote unquote legit business. We
Hmm.
need to start pushing the dial, but it's also not all the way on the right. Because if you're too casual, if you're too like blah and weird and quirky, people put you in the friend zone. They see you as a
Hmm.
comedian. They see you as so casual. And if it's that casual, they're not going to trust paying you to solve their problems. They're looking for a little element of professionalism. So you have to figure out where your sweet spot is with that dial. And that comes through trying things out. It comes from bringing some weird, quirky humor. Like it has to be natural for you, but you have to figure out where your sweet spot is on your own dial.
Hmm. Yeah, and it's feels like it's something about, you want to be taken seriously as well. So if you just goofing around all the time and wearing your slacks all the time, it's going to be a little bit harder to take you actually seriously, obviously.
Totally. Sorry, my dog. I don't know if you could hear my dog. If anybody's
I
listening, you
couldn't.
could hear the little whimpering. We have a sweet new puppy, and she's very excited with her very quirky personality. But you hit it on the head. Like it's. I think if you're wearing, we're getting really tangible with clothing, but I think this is such a great illustration
It's a
of it.
great, yeah.
If you wear, let's say you wear jeans every single day. If you wear jeans every day and t-shirts every single day, and then you go out to meet a prospect and you're in a three-piece suit, while that might look more professional, i.e., language wise, it'd be
Hmm.
like us talking casually, and then all of a sudden we showed up to a sales call trying to use a bunch of big words to
Hmm.
sound fancy and smart. It could work to close the sale. However, if that's not how you normally communicate, there's going to be a lack of congruency when you deliver the product to the client. They're going to see in your course that you actually don't wear a three-piece suit or use really fancy language. Like there is a mismatch there. So what we
Hmm.
have to do is when we're showing up to do PR, whether that's podcasts or guest speaking on stages or any of that kind of work, we need to be congruent with how we actually show up. So how we deliver the product, how do we show up to our coaching calls, how do we email and chat with our email list. If those things are not congruent, you break the trust with your audience. And a lot of people think that they have to literally dress up their words and what they look like for the selling process. But what actually happens is you attract the wrong people. You
Hmm.
need to show up as the way that you normally show up so that you're attracting your perfect fit, the kind of people that you want to serve and keep showing up for.
Mm. And would you say that maybe, due to the fact that we look to these other people, the gurus, experts, people that we look up to, and we pick up on a lot of their language, their stuff, and we try to adapt that to us, but that doesn't necessarily fit with us. So it becomes
Oh,
a little
yeah.
bit unauthentic or wrong, or I don't know.
I
Yeah.
love that you brought this up. I call this the parrot effect.
The
Like
parrot
a
effect.
parrot bird squawking on your shoulder, like Polly wants a cracker, raw. That was my parrot voice. It was terrible. Luckily,
Excellent.
that's not how I make money. But yeah, this is the thing, especially when you get in a new space, right? You are inspired and influenced by the people that you follow, and this happens to
Hmm.
everyone. Where you notice your mentor is using a certain language. So all of a sudden, aware of it or not, you're using that same phrasing, that same language. And sometimes that can really work. Other times it can feel like, I don't know if you did this when you were a kid, where you would steal your parents' clothes and play dress up. I used to wear
Hmm.
my mom's. She had like patent red leather high heels. I thought were pretty cool. But it like they don't fit you. They're fun to put on, but authentically they're not you. So, what we have to do as entrepreneurs, I think it is important for us to try on a lot of different phrasing. I also think different styles, getting geeky, things like
Hmm.
your set, what your set design looks like, what your branding looks like, different verbiage that you use. Do you use humor? Do you not? I think because so many entrepreneurs have come from professional backgrounds, what I find is most of them don't actually know what their vocal style is. They don't know what their kind of real personality is as a brand because they've always been tethered by someone else's brand. But they
Hmm.
don't know what their natural voice looks like outside of drinks with their girlfriends on the weekend. So they're trying to figure it out. So I do think it's a good idea that if you're borrowing language or borrowing styles from mentors, do it, explore, test different things. But as you mentioned, like you have to be aware of it. Like you have to
Hmm.
be aware of it and really be asking the question, is this true for me? Like, is this aligned for me? Do I sound the most authentic and natural? Because something that works really, really great for your business mentor, it works for them because it's authentic. It's not going to work for you just because the language works does not mean that it's going to work for you. It's the authenticity that works.
Hmm. Yeah, and this all kind of reminds me of, messaging in general, where we think that we need to have it in a certain way, but if you actually take the time to notice, your messaging will, change and it will evolve over time. And what it was like a year ago is not the same way your messaging is at the moment.
I agree. Yeah, it's huge. Like, the thing with messaging is I think there's this There's this idea that messaging, just to clarify how I think messaging is really specific to how you talk about your business in a
Mhm.
way that aligns your perfect customer with your perfect offer. It's like messaging is the shepherding of where they meet and greet with you all the way up to them buying your offer. So it's like the what you talk about in that process. Most people consider that a launch.
Mhm.
So messaging, I think there's this idea that people think that there is a perfect way to quote unquote message their offer
Mm.
in order to convert. And as you just said, like it's not, there is actually no one perfect way. You can have five different versions of your messaging and they could all work. Honestly, a lot of it is the energy you bring to your messaging,
Exactly.
right?
Yes.
That if you're bringing desperate energy, oh my gosh, I have to make this convert. It doesn't matter how damn good your
Oh,
language is,
yep.
your energy, i.e., your vocal tone,
Mhm.
your pace, your body language, your facial expressions, all of those things are going to scream repel because
Mhm.
there's desperate energy there. So it doesn't matter how good the words are if you don't deliver those words in a, as I say, a magnetic way, your launch is going to flop. So I like to tell people just get your next I'll keep it PC here. We use not crappy, the other word, but we say crappy first draft. It's like your
Mhm.
crappy next version. That's what we say all the time in my program when people are creating their signature talks. It's like, don't try to make the perfect talk, just make your next talk. Create the
Mm.
crappy next version because you need to deliver it, get feedback from it, see what works, see what stories resonate, see what analogies are working, see where people are pushing back or taking action. Get your next version, and that will get you closer to your more, even more magnetic message.